Good morning. Hope you are all doing okay today. Tuesday, here we go again, another week of lockdown. So, as you can see, I am in a slightly different location today. I am at home, I'm working from home today, and I've had to quickly move myself upstairs to my son's bedroom as the window cleaner's here and he's making a lot more noise downstairs. So I thought it's best for me to come up here and hopefully not be disturbed too much. So I've got a little confession. The book that we started last week has gone missing over the weekend. We had a bit of a clear out at the weekend, I think, as a lot of people are doing during lockdown, and trying to make some good use of the time, and the book's gone missing. So I'm really hoping, I've looked high and low for it. I'm hoping it hasn't gone in one of those bags that went in the rubbish. But what I'm having to do today is start on a different book. So I hope you're all okay with that. I do apologise. One of the things of having to clear out when your children are helping, I think. So what I thought I'd do is start on a new book, and I'm really excited to read this one. So it's slightly different to what I was reading before. So it's called Calm the F Down. Excuse the bad language. I won't actually use any of the bad language. So yeah, it's a book that a friend bought me a while ago, and I've been wanting to read it for ages but just haven't got round to reading it. It's by a lady called Sarah Knight, and it says on the front, how to control what you can accept and what you can't, so you can stop freaking out and get on with your life, which, to be honest, sounds pretty perfect for how I'm feeling at the minute. So I thought we'd give this one a go. Let me know in the comments after today's session whether you thought it was any good or not. If you're not keen, we can always start something else. So here we go. So it starts off, a note on the title. This is a book about anxiety, from the white noise of what ifs to the white hot terror of a full-blown crisis. As such, you'd be forgiven for thinking I'm the world's biggest arsehole for titling it as I have. Since everyone knows that the first entry on a long list of unhelpful things to say to a person experiencing anxiety is calm down. Indeed, when I'm upset and somebody tells me to calm down, I want to murder them in a swift and decisive fashion. So I can see where you'd be coming from. But this book is also a book about problems. We've all got them, and calming down is exactly what you need to do if you want to solve those problems. It is what it is. So if it keeps you from wanting to murder the messenger, know that in these pages I'm saying calm down the same way I said get your shit together. I'm going to say get your S together because I feel really bad swearing on here. I promise that's all I'm going for, and that I'm not the world's biggest asshole. That honour belongs to whoever invented the Vuvuzela. I don't even know what that is. We cool? Excellent. One more thing before we dive into all of that anxiety reducing, problem solving goodness. I understand the difference between anxiety, the mental illness, and anxiety, the temporary state of mind. I understand it because I myself happen to possess a diagnosis of generalized anxiety and panic disorder. So, although a profanity-riddled self-help book is no substitute for professional medical care, if you picked up the Calm the F Down because you're perennially clinically anxious like me, in it will you find plenty of tips, tricks and techniques to help you manage that, which will allow you to move on to the business of solving the problems that are feeding your anxiety in the first place. But maybe you don't have, or don't realise you have, or aren't ready to admit yet you have anxiety, the mental illness. Maybe you just get temporarily anxious when the situation demands it. See the white hot terror of a full-blown crisis. Never fear. Calm the F Down will provide you with ample calamity management tools for stressful times. Plus, maybe some tips, tricks and techniques for dealing with that thing you don't realise you aren't ready to admit you have. So, introduction. I'd like to kick things off with a few questions. How many times a day do you ask yourself, what if, as in, what if X happens? What if Y goes wrong? What if Z doesn't turn out like I want, need, or expect it to? How much time do you spend worrying about something that hasn't happened yet? Or about something that only hasn't happened, but probably won't? And how many hours have you wasted freaking out about something that has already happened, or avoiding it as a quiet panic infests your soul instead of just dealing with it? It's okay to be honest. I'm not trying to shame you. In fact, I'll go first. Morning, Laurel. My answer is too many, too much, and a lot. I assume yours is too, because if the answer is never, none, and zero, then you have no reason to be reading this book, nor, I might add, the hard-won qualifications to have written it. Well, I come bearing good news. When we're finished, the next time you come down with a case of the what ifs and whether they remain theoretical anxieties or turn into real life problems that need solving, instead of worrying yourself into a panic attack, crying the day away, punching a wall, or avoiding things until they get even worse, you'll have learned to replace the open-ended nature of that unproductive question with one that's much more logical, realistic, and actionable. Okay, now what? Then you'll deal with it, whatever it is. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, we start the basics. Things happen. Boy, does it. And when I think about all the stuff that could or probably will happen to me on any given day, I'm reminded of a lyric from departed musical genius and spiritual gangster, the one and only Prince. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. The purple one had suspect opinions about a lot of things, among them religion, tasteful fabrics, and age-appropriate relationships. But in this regard, he was spot on. Each morning that we wake up and lurch across this rotating time bomb called Earth, our baseline goal is to get through the day. Some of us are angling for more, like success, a bit of relaxation, or a kind word from a loved one. Others are just hoping not to get arrested for treason, while every day some of us are hoping someone else gets arrested for treason. And though each 24-hour cycle brings the potential for good things to happen, your loan gets approved, your girlfriend proposes, your socks match, there's also the chance that a big steaming pile of poop will land in your lap. Your house could get repossessed, your girlfriend might break up with you, your socks may become woolly receptacles for cat vomit. Not to mention the potential for earthquakes, tornadoes, military coups, nuclear accidents, the world wine output falling to record lows, and all manner of disasters that could strike at any time and really mess up your stuff, especially the wine thing. That's just how life works. Prince knew it, you know it, and that is literally all you and Prince have in common. So here's another question for you. When stuff happens, how do you react? Do you freeze or do you freak out? Do you lock the bathroom door and cry, or do you howl at the sky with rage? Personally, I've been known to pretend stuff is not happening, bury my head in a pillow, and stick my ass in the air in a move I call ostriching. Unfortunately, while these coping mechanisms can be comforting, none are especially productive. And I say that's having invented one of them. Eventually, you have to stop freaking out and start dealing with your stuff. And shocker, it's hard to make decisions and solve problems when you're panicking or sobbing or shouting, or when all the blood is rushing to your head. Which is why you really need to do first and foremost is calm the F down. Yes, you. If you're having an A+ day, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, and all is all right with your minuscule slice of rotating time bomb, you probably don't need to calm down. Congrats, go outside, enjoy. Things will turn to shit soon enough, and I'll be waiting. We've all been there. I simply maintain that most of us could learn how to handle it better. Related, most of us also have a friend, relative, or partner whose inevitable reaction to our every crisis is, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Or worse, oh, it's not so bad. On that, I call BS. Well-meaning platitudes are easy to offer for someone with no skin in the game. In this book, we'll be dealing in reality, not nicety. The truth is, yes, sometimes things will be okay. You pass the test, the tumour comes back benign, Linda returns your text. But sometimes they won't. Investments go south, friendships fall away. In an election of monumental consequence, millions of people cast their vote for an ingrown toenail in a cheap red hat. In some cases, it's really not so bad and you are overreacting. You've built an imagined crisis up in your head and let it feed your anxiety like a mogwai after dark. If you've seen Gremlins, you know how this ends. But in other cases, it's real bad and you're underreacting. You're like that cartoon dog who sits at a table, drinking coffee while the house burns down around him, thinking, it's fine, this is fine. And sure, by saying everything's going to be okay, your friend, relative, partner is probably just trying to help you. But whether you're making a Taj Mahal out of a teepee or ignoring a problem for so long that it sets your metaphorical house on fire, I'm actually going to help you. That's just how I roll. Thus begins your education in calming the F down. Lesson 1. Merely believing that things will be okay or aren't so bad may make you feel better in that moment, but it won't solve the problem. And a lot of times it doesn't even feel good in the moment. It feels like you're being condescended to by the happy industrial complex. Don't get me started. Either way, it doesn't change a goddamn thing. Lesson 2. When stuff happens, circumstances are what they are. Tires are flat, wrists are broken, files are deleted, hamsters are dead. You may be frustrated, anxious, hurt, angry, or sad, but you are right there in the thick of it. And the only thing you can control in this equation is you and your reaction. Lesson 3. To survive and thrive in these moments, you need to acknowledge what's happened, accept the parts you can't control, and address the parts you can. Per that last one, have you heard of the Serenity Prayer? You know, the one about accepting the things you cannot change and having the wisdom to know the difference. Calm the F down is essentially a blasphemous, long-form version of that with flowing charts and stuff. If you're into that sort of thing, we're going to get along just fine. What, me, worry? I'm guessing that if you came to this book for guidance, then worrying about stuff, either before or after it happens, is a problem for you. So here's a mini lesson. Worrying has two separate but related meanings. In addition to the act of anxiously fretting about one's problems, worrying also means constantly fiddling with something, rubbing at it, tearing it open and making it worse. It's like noticing that your sweater has a dangling thread, maybe the beginnings of a hole, and it's natural to want to pull on it. You're getting a feel for the problem, measuring its potential impact. How bad is it already? What can I do about it? But if you keep pulling and then tugging, yanking and fiddling, instead of taking action to fix it, suddenly you're down a whole sleeve, you're freaking out, and both your state of mind and your sweater are in tatters. I've seen smaller piles of yarn at a cat cafe. When you get into this state of mind, you're not just worried about something else, you're actually worrying it. And in both senses, worrying makes problems worse. This series of unfortunate events applies across the board, from worries that bring on low-level anxiety to those that precede full-bore freakouts. Some of that anxiety and freaking out is warranted, like, what if my car runs out of gas in the middle of a dark desert highway? But some of it isn't, like, what if Linda is mad at me? I know she saw that text I sent yesterday and she hasn't replied. Why haven't you replied, Linda? Luckily, I'm going to show you how to get a handle on all of your worries, how to accept the ones you can't control, and how to act in a productive way on the ones you can. I call it the no worries method. It's based on the same concept that anchors all of my work, mental decluttering, and it has 2 steps. Step 1, calm the F down. Step 2, deal with it. Sounds promising, no? Or does it sound overly reductive and like it couldn't possibly help you in any way? I hear that, but overly reductive yet extremely helpful is kind of my thing. So maybe give it another page or 2 before you decide. For now, let's get back to those questions you're already admitting you can't stop asking yourself. What if X happens? What if Y goes wrong? What if Z doesn't turn out like I want, need, or expect it to? The X you're worried about could be anything from getting your period on a first date due to the untimely death of a loved one. Y could be your dissertation defense or the landing gear on your Connect flight to Milwaukee. Z might be a job interview, a driving test, or the rather large wager you placed on the latest royal baby name. It's a £4,000 shame they didn't go with Gary, I know. In the end, it doesn't matter precisely what your what ifs are, only that they exist and they're occupying some or lot or too much of your mental space on any given day, unraveling your metaphoric sweater bit by bit. You would therefore do well to note the following. Lesson 4. A bunch of this stuff is unlikely to happen at all. Lesson 5. You can prevent some of it and mitigate the effects of some of the rest. Lesson 6. Some of it is and always has been completely out of your hands and locked in the steely grip of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. You need to take your licks, learn the lesson, and let this one go. And hey, no judgments. I'm right there with you. Hence the hard-won qualifications to have written this book. For most of my life, I've been a champion worrier. What ifs swirl inside my skull like minnows on a meth bender. I fret about stuff that hasn't happened. I obsess over stuff that may or may not happen. And when stuff does happen, I possess an astounding capacity for freaking out about it. But over the last few years, I've found ways to keep that stuff to a minimum. I'm not completely worry-free, but I have become less anxious and I'm no longer, shall we say, paralysed by dread and or driven to the brink of madness by unmet expectations and a boiling sense of injustice. It's an improvement. I'm amazed at how good it feels and how much I've been able to accomplish with a relatively simple change in mindset, accepting the stuff I can't control, which allows me to focus on dealing with the stuff I can control, leaving me better equipped to make decisions and solve problems, both in the moment and after the fact, and even to prevent some of them from happening in the first place. Nifty. I've learned how to stop dwelling on unlikely outcomes in favour of acting to create more likely ones, how to plough forward rather than agonise backward, and crucially, how to separate my anxiety about what might occur from the act of handling it when it does occur. You can learn to do all of that too. Calm the F down will help you stop freaking out about the stuff you can't control and enable yourself to make rational decisions so you can solve problems instead of making them worse. Here's what the process looked like for me during the last few years and a little taste of how it can work for you. I can't deal with this stuff, or can I? The beginnings of my change in mindset happened to coincide with a change of location when my husband and I moved from bustling Brooklyn, New York, to a tranquil fishing village on the north coast of the Dominican Republic. I know, shut the hell up, right? But I swear this isn't a story about idyllic sun-drenched days full of cocoa lotions and aquamarine vistas. I do enjoy these, but the primary benefit of living where I do is that it has forced me, like aquamarine waterboarded me, to calm down. During the previous 16 years in New York, I'd had a lot going on. I climbed the corporate ladder, planned and executed a wedding, bought real estate, and orchestrated the aforementioned move to the Dominican Republic. I was always good at getting stuff done. Yes, but I was not especially calm while doing it. And when anything happened to alter the course of my carefully cultivated expectations, well, forget about it. You might think that a high-functioning, high-achieving, highly organised person would be able to adjust if the situation demanded it. But back then, I couldn't deviate from the plan without experiencing a major freak out, such as when a downpour on the day of my husband's 30th birthday picnic sent me into a fit of goodbye full world. In those days, I had a tendency to melt down faster than half a pound of raclette at a bougie Brooklyn dinner party, making all of the stuff I had to do far more difficult and anxiety-inducing than it needed to be. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, all the damn time. Something had to give, but I didn't know what or how to give it, which brings us to that tranquil fishing village on the north coast of Dominican Republic. 3 years ago, I moved to a place where you might as well abandon planning altogether. Here, the tropical weather shifts faster than the Real Housewives loyalties. Stores close for unspecified periods of time on random days of the week, and the guy who's due to fix the roof is just as likely to arrive a week from mañana, possibly because of thunderstorms or because he couldn't buy the materials he needed from the hardware store that is only periodically and inconsistently open. Or both, or neither. Who knows? Caribbean life may look seductively slow-paced and groovy when you've called in sick from your demanding job to lie on the couch binging on chicken soup and a HGTV. And in lots of ways, it is. I'm not complaining. But it can also be frustrating for those who thrive on reliability and structure, or who don't deal particularly well with the unexpected. After a few weeks of hanging out in Hispaniola, I began to realise that if I clung to my old ways in our new life, I would wind up in a perpetual panic about something, because nothing goes according to plan around here. And that would negate the entire purpose of having gotten the hell out of New York in the first place. So for me, landing in the DR was a shot of exposure therapy with a coconut rum chaser. I've been forced to relax and go with the flow, which has done wonders for my attitude and my Xanax supply. Again, not complaining. But through observation and practice, I've also determined that one doesn't need to uproot an island in the middle of the Atlantic to calm down. Anyone can do it, including you. You just need to shift your mindset, like I did, to react to problems in a different way. In doing so, you'll also learn that you can actually prepare for the unexpected, which helps a lot with the whole one step back thing. How is that possible? Wouldn't preparing for every potential outcome drive you crazy in a totally different way? Well, yes, it would. But I'm not talking about securing multiple locations for your husband's 30th birthday party, because what if it rains? Or preparing 3 different versions of a presentation, because what if the client seems to be in less of a pie chart and more of a bar graph mood that day? Or erecting a complicated system of moats around your property, because what if your neighbour's frisky cow gets loose someday? That could definitely drive you in a crazy different way, and possibly to bankruptcy. I'm talking about preparing mentally. That's what this book helps you do, so that when stuff happens, you'll have the tools to handle it, whoever you are, wherever you live, and whenever things get hairy. A few months ago, after a pleasant night out at a local tiki bar, my husband and I arrived home to an unexpected visitor. I had opened our gate and was slowly picking my way across the flagstone path to our deck. It was dark and I was tipsy, when a larger than usual leaf caught my eye. It seemed to be not so much fluttering on the breeze as scuttling on it. A quick beam of my iPhone flashlight confirmed that the presumptive almond leaf was in fact a tarantula the size of a honeydew melon. Yep, I'll give you a moment to recover. Lord knows I needed one. Now, Assuming you haven't thrown the book across the room in disgust, or that you have at least picked it back up, may I continue? Having previously declared my intention to burn the MF down if we ever spotted such a creature in our house, I was faced with a quandary. By this time, I had grown fond of my house, and technically the creature was not in it, just near it. What to do? Stand frozen in the place until the thing wandered back down to the unknowable depths from where it first came? Sleep with one eye open for eternity? Politely ask the tarantula to skedaddle? None of these were realistic options. As it turned out, apart from shouting at my husband to please come deal with the tarantula, there wasn't much I could do. We live in a jungle, and no matter how many real estates and fellow expats had told us, those guys stay up in the mountains, you'll never see one, there was no denying that the seven-legged fact that one had found its way to our humble sea-level abode. You read that correctly. This gent was missing one of his furry little limbs, a fact that will become important later in this story. What we did do was this. My husband grabbed a broom and used it to guide the uninvited guest off our property and into the neighbour's bushes. And I fled into the house muttering, "Everything is a tarantula," under my breath until I was safely upstairs and sufficiently drugged to sleep. It wasn't totally calming down, but it was a step in the right direction. The next morning, we got up early to go on an all-day run. Oh, sorry, all-day run. An all-day rum-guzzling boat trip with some friends. I know, shut up. I staggered downstairs in a pre-8 a.m. haze, and as I turned at the landing toward the bottom of the stairs, I saw it. Hiding behind the floor-length curtain in the living room was the very same tarantula. Sorry, I just lost my place. The very same tarantula that had previously been shooed a good 100 feet away from its current position. I knew it was the same one because it only had 7 legs. And lest you think I got close enough to count them, I will remind you that this spider was so big you did not have to get close to count its legs, with which it had, overnight, crossed an expanse of grass, climbed back up onto the deck, and then climbed again up to the terrace and squeezed in between the cracks of our sliding doors to get inside the house. I know what you're thinking. This is when we burn the house down, right? And yes, my instinctive reaction was, I can't deal with this. But you know what? Upon second viewing, the tarantula was not so bad. Or rather, it was still bad, but I was better. If we found a spider like that inside our Brooklyn apartment, I would have lit a match right then and there. But now it seemed I'd been trained by all those unpredictable monsoon rains and unreliable roof guys. Expect the unexpected. Nothing goes according to plan. Surprise! From our practice run the night before, I knew it wasn't going to move very fast or start growling at me. And I had to admit that a honeydew-sized spider operating 1 leg short was a lot smaller and less nimble than a 5-foot-tall person with both her legs intact. It turns out that exposure therapy is clinically sanctioned for a reason. By activating the logical part of my brain, I was able to one-up that instinctive, I can't deal with this, and with a more productive, okay, well, what are we going to do about this? Because I have a boat to catch and vast quantities of rum to drink. This was no time for hysterics. Freaking out was not going to solve this problem. Recall, if you would, my jacked up version of the Serenity Prayer. Acknowledge what has happened. A tarantula is in my house. Accept what you can't control. Tarantulas can get into my house. Address what you can control. Get the tarantula out of my house. I had officially calmed down. Now it was time to deal with it. Fine, it was time for my husband to deal with it. I helped. Using an empty plastic pitcher, a broom, a piece of cardboard, and nerves of steel, he trapped the thing humanely and secured it on the dining table while I rounded up sunscreens, towels, portable speakers, an extra pint of Barcello because last time the boat captain underestimated and really Who wants to hang out on a deserted beach with an infinite supply of coconuts and a finite supply of rum? You can control the rum. Then we drove a mile down the road with our new pal Lucky, ensconced in his plastic jug, released the wayward spider into a vacant lot, and boarded the SS Mama Needs Her Juice. So, what did my newfound Caribbean calm and tales of tarantulan daring have to do with acknowledging, accepting, and addressing your overactive what ifs, worries, anxiety, and freakouts? A fair question. In addition to spending many years as a professional warrior, I am currently a professional writer of self-help books, including The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving an F, Get Your S Together, and You Do You. Each has recounted aspects of a personal trek toward becoming a happier and mentally healthier person, combined with practical profanity-riddled tips, accomplishing the same. They call me the anti-guru. Not going to lie, it's a pretty sweet gig. Collectively, the No F's Given Guides, NFGGs for short, have helped millions of people cast off burdensome obligations, organise their lives, and be their authentic selves. If you are one of those people, I want to thank you for enabling this super sweet gig. If you're new to the party, welcome. But the and sorry about the spider stuff, I know that was off-putting, but the NFGGs are like that sometimes. You'll get used to it. Anyway, I'm glad you're here, and between us, I believe you are holding in your hands the most useful No F's Given guide of them all. Since, as I think we've agreed, everyone has problems. That's right, you cannot get through life without stuff happening to you. But also, herewith, a manual for learning how to cope. In Calm the F Down, you'll learn about the 4 phases of freaking out, managing your freak out funds, mental decluttering, the 1 question to rule them all, how to sort your problems by probability and prioritize them by urgency, slate of mind, ostrich mode and how to avoid it, productive, helpful, effective worrying, the 3 principles of dealing with it, realistic, ideal outcomes, and much, much more. So if you're like me, if you ever thought, I can't deal with this, or you're asking, what if, more than you ought to be, worrying too much, freaking out too often, and wasting time and energy obsessing over things you can't control, I can help. Remember, I'm not here to invalidate or minimize your anxiety or your problems. I just want to assist you in dealing with them, and calming down is the first step. Along the way, I swear I'll never tell you everything's going to be okay, or push the narrative that it's not so bad. Whatever's going on in your life sucks as hard as you think it does. No arguments here. But I will say this. I'm 100% positive that if I can spend 10 minutes in a car with a tarantula on my lap, you can calm down and deal with your stuff too. Okay, so we're moving on to the next chapter now. So you're freaking out. Acknowledge the real problem and rein in your reaction. In part, we'll establish some parameters, beginning with what your problems are and exactly what variations of havoc they're wreaking in your life. Could you be any more excited? Then we'll study the evolution of a freak out, how it happens, what it looks like, and what it costs you. I'll introduce the 4 phases of freaking out and their flip sides, and show you how to transition from one to the other. This section includes a primer on a little something known in our household as Mexican airport syndrome. Pay attention, amigos. Next, we'll talk freak out funds. These are the resources you have at your disposal to forestall or combat a freak out. Time, energy, and money. They make the world go round, especially with the stuff is going down. Plus, there's the 4th fund, which you may have unknowingly been overdrawing for far too long. We'll discuss. I'll wrap up part one by explaining the concept of mental decluttering, both in general and as it perhaps to calming down, introducing you to the one question to rule them all, and finally walking you through the technique I call emotional puppy crating. All of this may sound a little wacky, especially the emotional puppy crating, but give it a chance. The way I see it, there are thousands of self-improvement methods on the market that peddle far more suspect solutions to life problems. At least I know the stuff in this book works because it works on me. And in addition to being very logical and rational, I am also at times a bona fide basket case. Anti-gurus, they're just like us. Now, let's freak out together. What seems to be the problem? Forgive me for saying so, but you seem a little anxious. Perhaps it's something small like wrapping up the last thing on your to-do list, or the niggling concern that you should be calling your parents more often. Maybe you're worried about something bigger or more complicated, like you want to apply to grad school, but you're not sure if you can fit it around your day job and your budget. The source of your anxiety might be hard to pinpoint, or it could be pretty obvious, like you just totaled your bike or discovered your house was built on top of an active gopher colony. Or, and this is just a wild guess, maybe it's all of the above. Yeah, I kind of thought so. Well, get ready to drop a jaw because I have news for you. It's all connected. That low hum of background anxiety, your worries about stuff that hasn't happened yet and stuff that already has. The little stuff and the big. All of it's related and all of it can be attacked with the realism, pragmatism and logical thinking that I'll be preaching throughout Calm the F Down. But before you can attack your anxiety about it, you must identify and isolate the specific underlying problem, one at a time, please. Sometimes that's easier said than done. If we're talking about a smashed up rally or a gopher colony, then I trust you know what's what. But there may also be days when you feel blah for no reason, and those feelings send you spiraling into a bad place. I can't fall asleep at night. I woke up in a panic. I can't relax. I'm so distracted. No reason, huh? Incorrect. There is a reason for your anxiety, a what if behind your worry. And if you can name it, you'll be in a much better position to calm down and deal with it. For example, I can't fall asleep at night because what if I get bad news from the doctor tomorrow? I woke up in a panic because what if my presentation goes badly today? I can't relax because what if I don't study enough to pass the test? I'm so distracted because what if I forget to do everything I'm supposed to do? First, you need to figure out why you feel this way so you can figure out what to do about it. Acknowledge the problem. You do that part and I'll help with the rest. I think it's a more than fair trade for a few minutes of introspection on your part, don't you? If you woke up in a panic this morning or you're feeling blah in this very moment, take 10 minutes right now to give your tarantula a name. You don't have to calm down about or deal with that just yet, but just get them out of the shadows and onto the page. If you're not currently experiencing everything as a tarantula anxiety, skip this part, but keep it in mind for the future. Next up, I'll show you what happens when your worries and what ifs leave you not merely distracted or unable to sleep, but barreling towards a full-fledged freak out. Why am I taking you deep into the bad place? Because understanding how freaking out works will help you understand how to avoid it. The evolution of a freak out. Imagine you're hosting your daughter's high school graduation party this weekend. She's headed off to the University of Texas. You're very proud. And although you tallied the RSVPs thrice and calculated your provisions accordingly, what if more people show than you expected? You start to worry that you don't have enough food or drink to serve all your guests, plus the inevitable plus ones, plus half a dozen teenage boys who will undoubtedly show up unannounced and decimate the hot dog supplies, leaving you with a subpar grilled meat to potato salad ratio far too early in the day. This is normal. Show me someone who's planned a big event and hasn't been plagued by what ifs and worries, and I'll show you a superhuman who runs on clonopin and hubris. It's what you do or don't do next that counts. You could run out and grab an extra pack of dogs and just throw them in the freezer if they don't get eaten. By taking action, tying a knot in that loose thread, you can prevent this worry from destroying your metaphorical sweater. Or, instead of acknowledging the problem, potential meat shortage, accepting what you can't control, uninvited guests, and addressing what you can, hot dog quantities, you could just keep worrying. Let's say you do that. What if the citronella torches don't keep the mosquitoes away as advertised? What if it rains? What if the UT novelty coasters I ordered don't get here in time? Uh-oh, your sweater is unraveling, knit 1 by purl 2. And those are just logistical what ifs. You can't help yourself. You keep pulling and tugging and adding more to the mix. What if people take one look at my yard decorations and think I'm trying too hard? Well, not hard enough. What if the neighbours are annoyed by all the cars parked along the street? What if we did all this work and everybody cancels at the last minute? Now your sweater is more of a midriff top. You can't stop to breathe, let alone take action. And you're no longer merely worried. You're officially freaking out. Evolution of a freak out. What if, worry, inaction, freak out. This is how it happens. And with the proper training, you should be able to prevent it. Right, we're going to stop there today. How did you all find that? I thought that was really interesting. I mean, I think I've said to you guys before, I suffer with anxiety. So I guess this I'll show you the book. This is why my friend bought me it. But it's really interesting, isn't it? Giving us different ways to deal with our anxiety. And it just makes you feel a bit more like, you know, you're not so abnormal. So thanks for listening to that this morning. I am going to carry on with that again every morning for the rest of this week at 10 o'clock. And yeah, hopefully you'll all join me. So have a great rest of the day and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.